which it affected us as a family, because in this whole financial strain that I took when I was there, and I realized that Prophet Samuel identified his victims, and once you were the victim, he would not just train you once, you were his project.
All right, thank you for being there. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're watching me from. I want to be brief in my comments so that you can watch the video. Before I go on, please, if you don't want to hear this aspect of my comment, you can just skip and go straight to the story of the woman and watch. But if you want to listen to my analysis, then please pay attention and hear me. This is the story, a continuation of the story that is victims of church abuse told at CRL. The woman in question, her own area, that of her family, is that they were financially drained, they were manipulated to the point of becoming redundant and becoming useless to themselves by their so-called prophet. And so she was not the only person. There was also the other family who were told as well. The man and his wife were told that they had the call of God upon them, and that the best way to serve God effectively was that they must go and sell everything they had and then come to submit it at the foot of God. And if you know who this God is, your guess might be as good as mine. And so they went and they sold their belongings, and they came, submitted it at the foot of this God. And so they now continue to serve God, serving the God. In the process, this God that they were serving became a rapist that had to rape the wife of the man 2 times right there in the church premise. Now I want to say something that at no point in time Jesus had never ever instructed any pastor, any apostle, any prophet to demand that people should sell off their assets in order to serve God well. There is no, that is not in the Bible. Now somebody may say, what of the young ruler? Yeah, Jesus used that to illustrate to us how difficult it becomes for someone who has so much attachment to his wealth and riches, and how difficult it becomes for such a person to make it to heaven. All right. So, and then the young ruler came and he said, good master, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus said to him, you have known the law, that shall love the Lord your God as with all your heart and with all your strength and with all your being. And the second is like the first, you must love your neighbor as yourself. And the young man said, yeah, from my youth I've observed these things. And Jesus was like, wow, then you are not far away from the kingdom of God. Now go and sell those things you have, and then you come and follow me. Now the lies or the pretense of that young ruler was extrayed, because the Bible said that he went out sorrowful. Remember that the second law is you must love your neighbor as yourself. Now he became sorrowful because Jesus said, go sell, give to the poor. Now if he had enough love for the poor, he wouldn't be too sorrowful. If he had enough love for God that he wants to serve, he wouldn't be that sorrowful. Meanwhile, Jesus turned to the disciples and said, have you seen how difficult it is for the rich? Not just because they are rich, but because they have so much attachment to the things that they have acquired. It was because of the attachment that young guy had on the things that he owned that made him to go out from the presence of the Lord, the Master, the giver of those things. He went away from his presence sorrowful. Now mind you, I want to repeat that Jesus didn't say sell it and bring to me, or sell it and come and give to the apostles, come and give to the disciples, but he said sell and give to the poor. Okay, so when a man, a so-called pastor, a prophet, will now begin to prey on whatever a mind condition of his congregants, I actually uploaded this video so that it will teach you a lot. if you will watch till the end, you will see that the woman said that this guy has a way of scanning them and knowing those that he could milk. All right, he doesn't go to everybody, because he also instructed them that while they are bringing people to church, they shouldn't bring people that are too needy, people that will become liability. Whereas the concern of Jesus when he was speaking to the man there was the poor, because the poor has no way of finishing. There will always be the poor with us. We will always have the poor around us. And the Lord said, sell and give to the poor. But here is a pastor who is asking the members, when you're giving invitation, don't give invitation to those that are too needy, those that will rather depend on the church, but instead give invitation to those that are well-doing, those that are self-sufficient. Those are the people that are needed, because these are the kind of people that when they are able to sell the things that they have, the money will be big and fat enough. Now, coming to the point I want to make. Now, the reason he would do this is because when you have sold all the things you have, you become vulnerable, you become dependent on you are now living at the mercy of this pastor. Now, have you heard the story of the cock that was brought, and this guy that brought it gave it to his servant and commanded, peel off every feather, peel off all the feathers from the cock. And this guy was doing it and succeeded in peeling off every feather from off the back of the cock and dropped the cock on the floor. And number one, the weather condition would be against the cock. Everything was standing against the cock, and so the cock now has no will of it. And so the same person that peeled off the back or the feathers at the back of this cock now brought some grain of cords, and it will drop for the cock, and the cock will be appreciative, will go and pick the cords. And he turned to the people around him. He said, this is how to deal with the people. When you make them to be dependent on you, then you would have gained maximum supremacy on them. And this is the policy that these satanic people, agents of the devil, that are using a platform that they call church to defraud the people. Now look at the at this point in time, at some point in time, this woman couldn't help herself again. She couldn't become useful to herself. And then that was when the man said, okay, you can now go and work for yourself. And how about the other lady that also was told, leave whatever you're doing, come to the church and stay? She brought she brought her money and then definitely handed over to the man. And when the money finished 6 months later, she was driven away from the church. So these are the things that I need to point out to you. At no point has the Lord said, sell off everything. God is not glorified when you are useless to yourself. He is not glorified when you are redundant to yourself. He is only glorified when he sees that you are doing well and you are productive, because our God is productive and He is a progressive God, and He will want to see you as a child also being progressive. He is not glorified when you become a reproach, when you become a liability to others. Whatever He gives, He has at heart. He has at heart the ability for you to edify the others. And when you have sold off everything you have, you won't be able to edify others. Listen, in the book of Acts of the Apostles, I made mention the other time that it was not the apostles that instigated the people to go and sell off what they had. It was their own ideas. It came on them like that, and Barnabas was one of them. He was the one that went and sold his land, because this was an inspiration in his heart. This was just purely what he wanted to do. It was never the idea of Peter, it was never the idea of James, it was never the idea of John. It was purely the idea of the disciples. And so they did. And there was another man there who also was interested, so that his name could be heard, so that he could also be famous. And then he did the same thing, but then he came and lied and he died for it. So I want to make you understand that God is not an author of confusion. God is not a greedy God. God will never ask you to empty yourself at the risk of your family. Listen to me. When the woman of Zarephath was told by Elijah that thus said the Lord, it was thus said the Lord indeed. And Elijah was not going to run away. Elijah was going to stay in that house. Elijah was going to be sustained in that house. And so the woman had every reason to trust Elijah. And of course, he has seen, the glory of God on Elijah. The thing is that so many of us, we don't ask questions, we don't even ask our strange question. But thank God that eventually this woman said she woke up from her slumber. And there are so many people who are still sleeping that sleep of death in that place that is called church. And you may be one of them. Please awake. It is normal and okay to give in the house of God. I'm not against that. You can give in the house of God, but let your giving not be a giving of foolishness. Listen, the truth is that give and it shall be given unto you is true. But when you are giving to God, please do not give because you are expecting that when you give $1, God will give you $1,000. That should not be your expectation. Give because you love God. Give because there is the necessity for you to give. Give because there is the need for you to give. Give because it is at that point in time relevant. Give because you want to support the work of God. Give not only to the church, but give to the poor around you. Give even to the members of the church around you that you find out that this person is coming to church every Sunday with one cloth and one slippers. Now you can help. You can lift the spirit of this person, and that is even the area that God is more interested, because the Bible says that he that helpeth the poor lendeth money to his maker, and he will pay. God will never owe you a dime. Now, but it is absolute foolishness, forgive me, pardon my language, for me to come out and begin to fund the excesses of a man that is not of God, of a man that just wants to remain a manipulator and want to lord his wickedness over the people. And then I will also come to contribute in the things that he is doing. God forbid. I want to read your comments, and I want to know what you think about this video. And I want to implore you to watch this video till the end, if it is a possibility that you watch the video till the end. Please, God bless you, and thank you very, very much for being there. Till I come your way again, I wish you happy viewership. Watch the video, put down your comment, engage in the video, like it or dislike it, whichever one that is okay with you. Then again, I say share the video, share and subscribe to the channel. May the good Lord preserve you and keep you in the mighty name of Jesus. Till I come your way again, I remain your brother in the Lord, and I want to say to you, Shalom.
Which it affected us as a family, because in this whole financial strain that I took when I was there, and I realized that Prophet Samuel identified his victims, and once you were the victim, he would not just train you once. You were his project. He will take, like, it started with me as a simple thing that I'm doing, his events inside there, I'm sponsoring there. It was a small part. But there was a bigger part that he was already at the time draining me financially. And it's something that, because he had put God and saving inside it, it would not be, I would not come to the next person and say, this is what is happening to me, and he tells you that it is between you and God and you are not talking. In 2019, when I came to church, I came with my husband. There was someone that was like a sister to me that I brought to church. She was also a scientist. The three of us, Commissioner, why I'm mentioning my husband and I'm mentioning the lady I brought to church, he encouraged us to resign from work. And as you resign from work, at every stage, when it started with him in 2016, and then it was the lady I brought to church, then it was me, he had plans for our monies, which was the money that when you leave, he already knew that you were going to pay time, you are going to give offering, you are going to pay a seed. And because he had said to us that God wanted us in business full time, the business that you were having, he was saying it is our first business, or your first of everything belongs to God. So every month, without fail, we were his financial support. We were the ones financing his project of the church. And all this money, where was it coming from? First, when his money went in there, when he left work, because now he's supposed to serve full time and he's supposed to build the house for God, his money went in there. We were already in business and working at the same time. We couldn't expand our business as per plan, because when he said he must go full time, I said, okay, you go full time, it wouldn't be a bad thing. You focus more on business and on this saving, but you need to make sure that we have money. And then in this whole space, now the money went towards the building of the church. And commissioners, when I say money, I'm not saying, I know money to somebody, for me 10,000, if it's a lot of money, to somebody it's not a lot of money. But from the money that he had received from his pension fund, about 70% of what he got went in there.
How much is that money?
That money, when we were sitting and calculating, he had given over 300,000 for the building. Because now when we were in the tent in 2016, towards end of 2017, he's making plans to build. And as he's making plans, he was making plans around his money. Because he said you come and then you serve and then you must build a house for God. So he takes his money, he gives in there. And that was the time that I also had a child around that time, towards end of 2016. So that prophecy that he said when we got to church that we were going to have a child, the child was now there. And then he says, you need to redeem the child. If you don't redeem, your first child, now it's going to be like a cursed child. You need to give money for him. So from the proceeds that my husband had, he gave over 100,000 for the child. And during that time, commissioners, he makes sure that as a family, because he had made my husband like, you mustn't listen too much what your wife is saying, because this one, she's okay, she's bright and all that, but she's been used by the demons. They are using her to block your finances. They are using her so that you as a family, you don't prosper. So you must make sure that when it comes to financial decisions, you give for you and for her. So by the time that now as a nursing mother, I even remember, commissioners, I had depression. I was taking medication. I had to, I have a child. He is out of his job. He is, the money has went in there. The church building, yes, there are plans for the building, but I'm thinking it came from us. There isn't any more income. But I don't know how, somehow in my mind, as I was taking that medication, I saw that it wasn't good for me and for the baby. I just let that, go. And then I was like, I'm still I was still at a job and I was still in my career. So I continued and I said, okay, we will just see what we can do of the business, because I'm not going to be angry over this, because I can see that this building, God's house, it wasn't part of the plan when we got there, but then it happened. I let it go. So we continue. Because he had said to my husband, you serve full time, our resources, our car, there was a point where people thought our car was his car. He was driving him around. We were putting petrol. He's got a farm. He's selling spinach. If he needed to go to the market, we needed to put a trailer on our buggy so that we transport him to the market. We transport his spinach, because now he said, you are here, you are saving. At some point, the two of us, we are talking, and then I'm angry, and then I said, but this serving God, it seems like we are just dishing out to a point that we are running dry. Was this part of the deal that when you are going to serve God? And then he said, I'm also frustrated, because he tells me about time and everything, that I mustn't be in a hurry. When you serve God, you don't choose which areas you serve and everything. And because he had made himself that you can't even have a conversation, the two of you, about him. When we talk, you'll be like, we have an argument, because it was even affecting our marriage. And then he says, but be careful as how you talk about prophet. He's a man of God and he hears us from his house. And because those were the teachings that he was teaching us at church. And then we were like, so we would talk about this whole thing and then you leave it hanging, because you can't talk much about it. And he has been warned that me, I'm being used by the demons. So 2018, I remember something happened. That in my mind at the time, before I went into that space, there was an element that you are aware of everything that's happening in your space. But once you went in there, now you start being there most of the time. It's like your whole view of the outside world diminishes. You only deal with what is just in front of you. The lady that I brought to church, she leaves work. And as she leaves work, he calls me prophet, and then he tells me that she has to leave. And she's aware that I'm not letting her go and serve full time. But the reason she told her to leave was that her mother was going to initiate her into being a Sangoma. So and this will end up killing her. So I must just let go. And then I was like, this is too much for me. But if it was for her own, for her own good, because I remember having a conversation with her, and I'm like, but it was affecting me personally, because this was the person I brought to church. And in this whole space, I was now checking. It's my husband, it's her. But nonetheless, let me not group this whole thing. After 6 months after she left, she went to stay at church. And when she was staying there in the mission house, she wasn't supposed to tell people where she was. And her mom, because she knew that she was with me most of the time, her mom calls me and asks me, where's her daughter? And then I said, you know what? She was supposed to have told you. At this point in time, I'm not in a position to be telling you everything, because I thought she told you. I don't even know what to tell you that she didn't tell you. But nonetheless, ma, can you call her? And the mother was angry at me that, you know something, But me, I knew what the prophet told me, that this one must leave work. After 6 months, she chases her away out of the mission house. And then when she chases her away, she says to me, she must go back and work. I must help her back to find the work. I remember I was seeing this whole thing, but because of she would paint that she's now out of danger, and the demons, she won't now die, because I was asking, if she left, now she came here, you said it was her destiny, why is she now supposed to go back and work? And little did I realize at the time, it was because the money, when she made her to leave, it was to take her money. So she already had plans for her money, because she brought all the money to church. She didn't even take anything home. And during that time when she was there, she made sure that she doesn't communicate much with me. So this is how I'm talking about things that have affected me. And of the 3 people that she made to resign, I was then the next person. And there are other many more that I cannot talk about, that I became to know about their issues that they left as well. Because when you are a professional, when things are running dry now in your life, now you don't have money and anything, she tells you that now it's safe, you can go back and start all over again. So in this whole space, he used for a whole 1 year, he used to say to my husband that you guys, your business now was supposed to be at another level. But my husband didn't have money to expand on the business at the same time, because all the money went in there, and with what he was having, it wasn't just enough. And then he says to me, but your wife can resign, and you guys are sitting on money. If she resigns and then you expand, on your business, on your plans. This is now when it was the beginning of 2019. I remember that in this whole 2018, when he's busy talking this, he spoke about it to a point where I couldn't resist it. Yes, it was every time coming. When you go to see him, you don't want to leave your job and expand your business. And God is saying, in this job of yours, you will not grow beyond where you are now. Where your grace is, it's in business. So to a point where I gave in. I said to myself, okay, what I'll do here, we will go into our business, we'll put the business plans, let's put the business plans on our own. We put them together, but in any case, anything that you do, he's asking you, he wants to know your every move. When are you planning to leave? What are you going to do when you leave? So those things you discuss with them, because for any reason, if you omit the information, it's like you didn't make him aware. So when things are going bad, you wouldn't have anyone to cover you and to pray for you and anything. So we tell him, okay, fine, this is what we will do in that space. So he kept on checking on us. How is she doing now? Okay, things were tight because now there was no income coming. We were going to go into a new business. The new business did well because of what we had put in place. But him having that, because he knew that we were his project, he was now, this business was supposed to support church. So at church there was always projects. Like one of the projects that he had was to build the toilets for the church from outside inside to inside the church, because now there was a building. So in this toilet project, we had to build the septic tank outside, which it has costed us over 120,000. We built this septic tank, we buy all the materials, we pay the laborers, and every Monday, Sunday you go to church, every Monday he's letting the office to call you. He wants information, how far is the project doing, what are you, when are they coming to deliver the material. So we're always going to the hardware, you buy material, you take the slips back to church so that when they deliver, the slips are there. And I no longer now had income. We only have the business, and the business for him to tell us that the business, for it to be sustainable, to grow, God is saying it must support all these projects. So what was coming from the business? Before we can spend on us, you would pay your tithe, you would give in your offering. We were on, I don't know what to call it, that support thing. We were supporting projects. There was never a time where we didn't have any project. The toilets I mentioned is one of them. We had so many that it is us as a family that would do them. Other people inside church were always being called, building fund, building what, building. Yes, the building is here, it was already completed, but there was always building. But in this whole thing, you are just taking out. We take out to a point now that our business was not doing well. When it started not to do well, we also don't have money. And then I remember we go to him, and then I said to him, this thing is there's just too much here. There's problems here, and part of the problem is I don't have anything anymore. What is coming is always going out. And then he now says that I should go and look for a job for a short time, and then I'll come back. It is at that point that I think I woke up from that sleep that I was in. Because in a church, and how he made sure that we were always sleeping commissioners, I know that as I'm talking to someone who's out there is thinking, maybe this person doesn't hear herself when she's talking. And I hear myself fully well. We would sleep in the church. And when I say sleeping, there were things that when he started doing them, part of, even when you were going to, and he makes sure that no one escapes it. We go in there, everyone was supposed to get a laying on of hand. And once he touches you, you are on the floor. When you stand up from that floor, you are dizzy. Being dizzy, you are dizzy. After that, if that was not enough for those who would have registered to go to prayer line if they were sick, they would have received now a second dose of laying on of hands. And the third dose of what we would receive there, he would say it's holy laughter. He would make you laugh and said you must receive the joy of the Holy Spirit when you are laughing, and God is working on your problems. That thing, it used to be so contagious that if I start laughing, the next person starts laughing. The whole church now, when you come in, you walk into that space, if you were to look at those videos, it's something that is not decent. People are laughing. People is like they're drunk. He makes people to dance. The keyboard person must do the fast keys, and people you'll be dancing. It's like we looked drunk in there. And I remember many times that when I leave church, I couldn't walk properly. You are walking, but either you fall, your senses, it's like you are just you can't even, if you are to ask me my name in that point, I would just laugh. I would not even answer you what was my name. So it's things that he continually did. And other times he will be saying he's taking us for this messy land thing, and then the messy land is just sand. He puts there, and then once he starts putting the hand on you, you fall. So we would be so dirty, and people that are looking at you when you are rolling here, you are dirty. People now are laughing at you. It used to be that thing that at that time when you're in that environment, you just went through that thing. You come back the next day, you are tired. You don't know what happened to you. You recover by midweek. When it's Wednesday, that's when you are like, okay, my body's coming back to normal. It's like, okay, I can take complex things. That's what I experienced personally. And many people used to go through that, to a point that at the point where I had woken up, now I'm angry, he's telling me to go to work. And I can see that all our resources have went to him. They have went to church. And I'm looking for answers. And at that time, he doesn't have time now to talk to me. He doesn't have time now to address the problem. When I had money, he was, because now we were supporting every month. When you bring money to him, it was, a lot of money wasn't supposed to be EFT. It was money that was supposed to come cash. Because the things of God, you must do them cash, and then he will bless the money so that it can stretch and go far and everything. And when I bring the money, I was a Titus. He would say, you are now a Titus, making, you know, the work of Paul easier. At the time, he quotes scriptures all the time. So now I'm asking myself, what happened to the Titus now that when I come, you are no longer addressing my issues now? You are running away from me. I remember I moved from a stage that I was angry. I didn't want to hear about God. I didn't want to hear about this church that has built me, things that I knew that they were the core values of my life. I didn't want to hear, because I would say, God, I gave you everything. What else do you want from me now? You know, because in that space when we didn't even have, he would still call me and said, you must trust God more. You need not to be afraid. You need to give God. And then I would leave now and say, but what does he want to me to give now? I have nothing. You know, I was now starting to experience, and that was 2019 towards the end. I started having anger. I started having anger in me. I would still go to church, because if you are not going to church, he's got a monitoring system. Your disciple must call you and check you are at church. The office will call you and check if you are at church. So if you miss church, somehow even if because the environment was not the environment where I talk to the next person, because he knew that once you start talking to the next person, issues start coming out. You know, issues starts coming out. You would hear the story of the next person, and you can see some trends. So I started being angry in this environment, but I still show myself. And of the things now, this is the time when now I have woken up. I started even now. I go and I read for myself. I'm like, okay, I don't want. I start distancing myself from these teachings of his. I hear them, but even as I hear the teachings, because most of his teachings, you go to the Bible, they are there. But I realized that with time that there was a lot of omission. If he teaches on something, he would just pick something that he's going to use as a manipulating scripture to say you give more. But the rest of the things he would have just brushed them over and gave him more scriptures that would have supported his view. Then I started reading things, and then I go back. Now I'm becoming now my normal self that would go read things for myself, and then I go internet, I research, and I find that even the things that he was calling holy laughter, when I research, this is something that is occultic practices. They are documented. And then I start to think to myself, God, I don't understand. For the past 4 years or 5 years of my life, I thought I was at church. Where was I? Did I walk into something that was not church, that was not God, that I didn't see? I became dizzy. I became angry, I became bitter, I wanted answers. And when you start seeing that you are not now as responding as before, and people even in church can now see you, that this one is not as functional as before. He's not the up and down person, the bubbly person that would talk to people and everything. He now starts preaching about us. He's saying, like he's making better examples about us, and he goes there into the pulpit and say, people went into business, they were doing well, money was coming in. What happened now to the money? Where did the money go in? People are having the spirit of starting and stopping. What happened to the toilet? Because the toilet project, as we finished the septic tank, we came inside and then we said, we cannot do the cosmetics inside. If you do it, when we are back on our feet, we'll bring the money. Because right now we have to pay our bond, we have to pay everything else. And I'm looking at my life, I'm like, before I walked into that church, I was a whole person, in my mind, in my body, in everything, in my actions. I was not rich, but I was not indebted. Now I can't even survive. I can't put food on the table. There were days now that we are struggling. We don't have food. We don't have anything. We have to go, even for this project now, that when he keeps on phoning, you have to go and ask for money from people so that you can go and pay for his project. And then I see, I said, what has become of my life? And then I start to see that, but there's something in this environment. But for the likes of me, I'm unable now to go to the next person and say, church has destroyed me, because it's hard now to even say it out of my mouth. And in the whole space of my anger and my pain and everything, we no longer, as me and my husband, we no longer had a healthy relationship, because I started blaming him also. Because I'm like, some of the things I would come and ask, and when I ask, we can't talk about this prophet, what he was saying to us, what we were doing. We had a lot now that was conflict between us, because I said, sometimes I would ask this, and then you would say this, because you were spending most of the time with him and everything. But lockdown also came, thankfully, as bad as it was for me. It was that time where I was able to be on my own, starting now to listen to other people's stories, because when I was there at church, one of the things I remember, that he didn't like people reading, he didn't like people listening to other people's preachings, he would discourage those, and nonetheless one would not even have time to listen to the other people's preachings and everything, because you spend most of the time at church. So in this whole thing, I knew that church has destroyed me, commissioners. I knew that the person that I regarded as a prophet, it was not a prophet. I knew that it was an occultic guy. And I was his victim from that 2016, when I would go with the ideas and say, this is not right here, we can fix this, because I've been at church my whole life. I knew how a healthy church setup was. So I knew that something was wrong here, but I couldn't even talk it to somebody. I was just internalizing my pain and my anger and my frustration and my head. I remember at one point I said, God, I think I had done everything. Now if I die here, you know what, I have nothing. Even if I leave, I have nothing. It's best that my life can just end here, because if this is the race that I've ran. But somehow in this whole thing, I remember I would just be seeing videos on YouTube. So whenever I had data, I would listen to these videos, and there was a time I saw Sihle, and when Sihle spoke, because some of this whole thing as they are happening, I've never been abused at church before. I've never seen anyone abused at church before. The churches that I've went to, I knew that I was always the leader, helping other people, receiving help from other people, loving other people, receiving love. So there was nothing that there was nothing that was abused, that was, that I thought this has happened, and now I saw my life. And commissioners, when I say financially, in Prophet Samuel's Heaven's Church, even my mom, he would ask me, how's your mom doing? I say, my mom is doing well. I would just say that she's doing well. Have you seen her? I said, no, I haven't seen her. I've just sent her money for food. At that time I said, I send money for food. Why are you sending her money for food? You must give a gift voucher. Money is spiritual and everything. And at the back of my mind, I'm like, I hear money is spiritual, but when we bring money to you, we bring it cash. Our parents, we must buy them, give vouchers. And then I was like, this guy, what he's saying. Some of the things at that time, I would just, I hear them and I bypass them, but this is church. That, this is church, and then he's maybe worried about us, that we will be bewitched or what, because there was so much of witchcraft that he would talk about, to a point that I didn't even know what was witchcraft myself. Then, because I can't give my mother money, it's spiritual. The car guard at the parking lot, you don't give money, because money is spiritual. All the money that, when I say this guy destroyed me, his church destroyed me, his God destroyed me, all the money that was coming, before you do everything with money, before I could do everything with our money, as a family, it was money that was first supposed to go to him. The little that was left, it was what would go and service debts, and so that one could eat when one was affording to do that. So it was that type of environment that was centered around money. And as I snapped out of whatever that he did to us, because I believe, and without a shadow of a doubt, when you have money, he knows and he sees it, because he'll be talking to you. When are you receiving what? You need to report, I'm expecting X amount of money by when and stuff. And then when you receive, first thing you need to service God. So it wasn't even an issue that he's not aware that you have money. So it's something that he had. So I would hear other people speaking. I remember the time when Abu Mepo Pedi, me not knowing them, they were here, and the commissioner was asking them questions of what happened there. And one of the questions he posed was that, how is the government going to help people if now when people are going to churches are becoming poor? And Mopopedi was explaining that, you know, at church, even when people gave, even when they didn't have anything, I burst out crying, because there was a point of reference I needed at the time. I knew those were the things I did. And that was the result they were talking about without me being at their church, knowing them. I was seeing them in my own life, and I took my laptop, I started writing. I was writing to the commissioner and say, this is, I didn't even know that one day I'll be here. I was starting to put that, and as I'm writing one day at a time, I started on the 10th of November. It was like, somehow it helped me to heal, you know, because I could. Because it is at that time that I could put it with words. As I'm typing, I'm putting with words. I'm like, this is what happened. This is what happened. And for this, I don't need prophet. I don't need anyone. I don't need someone who can come and say this didn't happen. At that time, I had the answers now in front of me. I was hearing Pastor Makado talking, and I was thinking to myself, here I am. I used to read. I used to listen to, you know, TV, radio, everything that was information apart from my line of truth of what I knew. And I was like, the things that they were talking about, I didn't know, and in my mind I didn't even understand that you can just go to church and you are under witchcraft spell at church. And I knew that thing that I say is a witchcraft spell, it happened to me. Today, as I'm here, I'm not that whole person that I was. I'm not that person that could give the next person 5 rand and say, go and buy bread. I'm not that person that could go to a school. Those who knew me, they knew. I used to gather my friends and said, we have made it. You know, by God's grace, we are okay. There's a child in Alexandra, that's the area I used to go and support school kids, buy them uniform, you know, give them food. Not out of getting money from sponsor or anything. Saving what I had, encouraging my friends to save, and my colleagues at the time, and then we will save, and then we would go there. That was how it was, and I knew that I wasn't that person. Being at church has taken that away from me. In my family, whenever there was, my cousins had kids and everything, I used to adopt their kids before I had my own kids. I'll adopt them. This one is my project to a point that even some of my relatives used to say, you have been taken advantage of. You take so and so's child. Me, you must also take my child. I say, no, it's not a problem. When you are helping the next person, you receive help yourself, you know, in some way. That's how life should be. Life shouldn't just be centered around me, that everything will just be for me. So at the time, as I'm writing to the commissioners, I'm like, it was a 10-page that I wrote. It's there on my laptop. I'm writing. And then it comes to my mind. I said, that person that I brought to church, I remember I saw her being destroyed. And after she left her job, and then she was chased out of the mission house. She had to go and stay at home. It took a year for me to help her to you know, as she was applying to get another job. And I remember I saw her, she was a zombie. And to the general church at that time, no one was talking to her, finding out what was wrong. Instead, people were coming to me, what's wrong with your sister? And I would talk to her, what's wrong? What happened? And then she would just say, Ausi, I'm fine. That's how she referred to me. Ausi, I'm fine. And I said, but you are not fine. So during this whole time, as I'm writing, I said, you know what, I need to have a meeting with that lady and talk to her, tell her my experience at the place we went to. It was not church, it was not a good place. I saw her being destroyed. I'm destroyed. You know, my family is destroyed. I need to have a conversation with her. And then I called her and I said, can we meet? Because she was no longer coming as much. And during the lockdown and everything, even when we went back, I decided that I'm no longer going back. So whenever he would ask and call and say, where are you? I'll say, no, it's locked down. I need to look after the child. I can't just leave the child. The child. I was healing, trying to heal on my own. So church space was not my thing. So in November we have an appointment, and then I tell her, and then I said, this is what has happened at church. I know that you also went through a lot. I wanted to hear her experience at that time, because I was like, when I used to ask you, how are you? You used to say you are fine, but you're not fine. And this has been my discoveries. This has been my experience. This is what I have seen. This is what I've experienced. And this is not right. It happened to you. And I could see you were not fine. It happened to me now that I know that this is the space. And then as I talked to her, because I made an appointment on Friday, we were going to meet on Monday. As I talked to her, this prophet calls her. And when her phone rings, I hear now it's prophet talking to her. And then I look at her, and then he asks her, who are you with? Who are you talking to? And then she tells him, he said, I'm talking to Dipo. Yeah, I told you that Dipo is going to tell you about church. What is she saying to you? Give her the phone, I want to talk to her. And then I refuse to talk to her. Then she puts her phone on a speaker, and then now she's repeating. She says, tell her this. So the phone is on the speaker. So when this one is speaking, Prophet Samuel is speaking. She's repeating what he is saying. That, but the body language has changed, because as he's calling, he starts. As I'm telling her my story, she was crying. She was in tears, because what the pain that it was coming out of me. It's something that she could identify with. She's talking there, and then she's saying, God would help us. She's in pain, but I'm like, okay, I want us to have this whole closure so that we can move forward. And then now when this call comes, and then she changes in her body language, I could see that she's terrified. She's no longer herself now. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I don't understand. What is this? Was she dragging her? Was she monitoring her? What is this whole thing that when we are meeting, she calls, and then she says to her, tell her that she's a witch. Now she's, after everything, after she took my money, after she took all the resources, after I've served her with everything that I had, now she says, yeah, tell her that she's a witch. And then I keep quiet, because in me, I didn't want to have any exchange of words with him, because I was like, there's nothing that I would ever talk with this guy. All the time that I went there, I went to destroy myself under his teachings, under his God, under his church. I don't want even to exchange words with him. I cannot talk with him, because there's nothing that would make sense. And then he says, yeah, she's a witch. Tell her that she's following after the footsteps of her mother, which is a witch. And then I listen to him, and then I let him speak, and then he starts cursing. And then as he starts cursing, in my mind I'm like, this is someone that used to stand there and talk about God. He's cursing at me, that I will not make it, I will amount to nothing, and he says all those words. But at the time, I think it was not paining me at the time, because I was like, whatever that I internalized, whatever that now I concluded, this is the result of it, and it's the end of it here. No one will say what you are talking is not true. What you it's hearsay. It's what, this is the conclusion of my conversation with him in this. But I'm quiet, and then he's saying all those things, and he starts swearing at the husband, and he says that people want his church and everything. They're after his church and everything. And I knew that it's a lie, and then I let him finish talking, and then we dropped the phone, and then I say to this lady, I said, you know what? He's saying I'm a witch. All what he's saying, I hear him. He says my mother is a witch. Anyway, I remind her that, remember that your mother was a witch at some point. He was telling people that you were mad, you were in witchcraft, that's why he chased you out of church. I said, but anyway, let's just put it as closure. Where we were not a church. We were destroyed, and other people got destroyed. So that was the abuse I suffered in his hands. And as though that was just not enough, he will even have the audacity to take my image, when he's praying for you there at church, you are thinking you are at church, and most of the time he's the one doing communication. You spirit of what come out. And even myself, I remember at some point I'm thinking, this spirit, I just want to see this spirit coming out, whatever spirit is referring to, because how can I be at church my whole life and every time when you are here, you are busy being prayed for spirit, because spirit will be there and then they will leave. If you are in a good church that you used to say he's got the anointing of God to deliver people, to bless people and everything. So he would say witchcraft out, what out, as he's praying for you, and he's praying for a lot of things that you don't even know which spirit is supposed to come out of you actually. So he would be posting those things that I'm delivered from witchcraft, it is him who knows the witchcraft he's talking about. So out of all these things, I knew, commissioners, that I'm coming here in my, I don't know, today I think I'm a bit better than where I was before, that I could even come and talk. There was a time I couldn't talk. I couldn't internalize that being at church in a place that was meant for me to be in the presence and in the love of God and not being abused and not be taken advantage of and not things being stolen from me, using God, using the Bible, saying you must give this, you must, even for coming here to prepare, it was just too much for me.